By the time the Roman conquest of Gaul had ended, over 1 million Celts lay dead, and another 500,000 were sent into slavery. Number 3. Crucifixions. The Romans were notorious for the ways in which they treated and disposed of anyone who would stand in their way against total domination. One particular way they dealt with the people they thought threatened the Roman way of life was by crucifixion. This particularly brutal form of punishment was often used as a means of torture, as well as to send a message. Those people who were crucified were oftentimes accused of sedition, conspiracy to rebellion. Jesus was crucified for the exact same reason, and not for his religious teachings. The two men besides him were also considered insurgents, not thieves. Though not the inventors of this horrific practice, the Romans did excel in it. During Spartacus's rebellion in 72 BC, 6,000 captured rebels were crucified. Since Rome's population was about 40% slaves, and Spartacus and the other rebels were slaves themselves, their crucifixion was a definite message to those still living. Do not stir dissent, or this will be your end too. Number 2. The Praetorian Guard. The most powerful of all Roman legions was the Praetorian Guard, which was stationed in Rome itself. And oftentimes, the Praetorians had the power of life and death over the emperors themselves. They came into being as elite soldiers protecting generals during the Roman Republic. But the Praetorian Guard in itself
until
Augustus became Rome's first emperor in 27 BC. They acted as bodyguards to the emperor, emergency firefighters, the secret police, crowd control, and even fought in the arena to show off their prowess to the masses. But as Rome's power grew, so did its corruption and intrigue. And the Praetorian Guard was oftentimes right in the middle of it all. Even though their task was to ensure the interests of the emperor, if those interests didn't coincide with their own, they would just replace him. Disgruntled Praetorians famously engineered the assassination of Caligula in 41 AD. Many other emperors were also killed by the Praetorians. In 193 AD, they even put the crown up for auction. One man, Julianus, won by promising them each a bribe of 5 years' pay, but since he couldn't deliver, he too was murdered 66 days later. In 306 AD, the Praetorians tried to play the role of kingmaker one last time by supporting Maxentius as the Western Emperor in Rome. They were defeated by Constantine at the Battle of Milvian Bridge in 312, and he then disbanded the Guard. Number 1. Making and breaking the Empire. Without a doubt, the Roman Empire, in all its might, was made by the many legions who fought and killed for it. But in the end, the army is what brought Rome down. As we've seen up until now, Rome was a highly militarized society with an army of about 130,000 soldiers. 1 man in 8 was in the army, and while in the beginning only men with property were allowed to fight for the glory of Rome, once it expanded beyond the Italian peninsula, the ranks were open to a great deal more people. Foreigners were employed as auxiliaries, and after 25 years of fighting, they would be granted citizenship. Since these men were not citizens of Rome, they didn't believe in the idea of Rome and the civilization it brought with it, most never even seeing the city itself. Now many soldiers had less interest in defending it, and instead making their fortune through the spoils of war. Their loyalty was no longer to the city or empire, but to the generals who they were serving under, like was the case with Caesar and his legions. Army generals then realized they could become emperor just by marching into Rome, which they often did. By 395 AD, the empire would be divided to the east and west, and by 476...
weet ik niet, ja.
The Eastern Roman Empire would rule from Constantinople, and be a dominant force in the region for the
Nee.
200 years. Sorry, have you found that video?
Watch the skies.
And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. There's a button on the screen below me now, as well as the video. Also, if you like this video, why not check out some of our other videos, which are over there on the right.
Enough training. Now we face the enemy for real.
Ja.
Hello, I'm Simon Whistler, you're watching.
Ken ik al.
Hello, I'm Simon Whistler, you're watching.
Oké, dat ken ik inderdaad niet.
During the Crusader era, the world was quite royal. The constant migration of Europeans to the Holy Land also fostered a torrent of illness and disease. And when the terrible battles were over, many corpses were left.
Patient.
Hunt the enemy down.
Fair. Ja, hartstikke eerlijk dit. Gewoon geen kist. Ik had gewoon moeten gaan daar. Oh, noob. I know.
Fight to earn redeployment.
Ah, ik heb dit.
You win this fight and you return to the front line.
Ah, dat
But
lukt
if
niet.
you lose, you're done. Beat them down. Capture the objective.
Dat. Ja. Fuck off. Van een hoer. Wat een homo's. Oeh.
The proliferation of pests, like rats and flies. In some places, the situation was almost on edge. Urgent measures were needed. Jerusalem was the city with the greatest flow of people in this region. Due to its religious importance, the city was inhabited by Jews, Christians, and even Muslims. This large number of people who lived daily in the narrow streets of the city also increased the chance of epidemics. The First Crusade ended in 1099. This year, an establishment was founded to shelter Christian pilgrims in Jerusalem. It was the monastery of St. John the Baptist. To alleviate the suffering of the city's sick, a hospital was built inside the monastery. The hospital was run by monks of the Order of St. Benedict. They wore dark robes in their daily lives. Even with the hospital helping in the public health of the city, it was not enough to treat the Crusader soldiers, who often left to fight in territories far from Jerusalem. Soldiers wounded in battle had to be transported over a long distance to reach the hospital. Many could not resist that painful journey. On the other hand, sending monks without combat training to treat the wounded on the battlefields did not seem a good solution. It was there that Gerard Thome, one of the most important members of the monastery of St. John the Baptist, founded the Sovereign Military Order of Malta, also known as the Order of the Knights Hospitaller. The monastery of St. John became the official headquarters of the Knights Hospitaller. There, the young recruits of the order studied and learned not only the art of combat, but also the art of medicine. The Order of the Knights Hospitaller had as its main objective to protect the monastery, to protect the Christians of Jerusalem, and to treat the needy. The motto of the Hospitaller was to defend the faith and help the poor. To reinforce the ideal of humility, the Knights Hospitaller kept a simple appearance. Their robes had the dark colors worn by the monks of the monastery, but they also started to bear a white cross. By 1136, the number of members of the Hospitaller Order had grown. With the acquisition of new castles and territories, it officially became a military order. The Knights Hospitaller became a life force on the battlefield. Not only did they treat the wounded soldiers, but they ferociously fought the Saracen armies. One of the most important battles, where the Knights Hospitaller were present, was the Battle of Arsuf, part of the Third Crusade. In that battle, King Richard's Lionheart was in trouble before the army of Sultan Saladin. Saladin's army had a numerical advantage. It consisted mainly of light cavalry and archers on horseback. The Knights Hospitaller were in the rear of Richard the Lionheart's army, where they helped the wounded soldiers. Realizing that the battle would be lost, the Knights Hospitaller abandoned their position and attacked while shouting their war cry for St. George. The Knights' sudden attack surprised the Saracen army, causing it to retreat and allowing the remaining Crusaders to reorganize a counterattack. After the battle, King Richard the Lionheart praised the bravery of the Knights Hospitaller, further valuing the symbolism of the order. Around 1278, the Knights Hospitaller began to wear the color red in their battle tunics. It was a color used mainly by the leaders of the order. After 1530, the Hospitaller Order established itself on the island of Malta, south of the island of Sicily. They remained in Malta until 1798, when they were forced to leave the island after an attack by Napoleon Bonaparte, while the French Emperor was on.
Moscow. No, 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 no.
Eliminate all targets in the AO. Bounty target is up. Take him down.
kwam erop af. Wat de fuck is het voor bullshit ook, jongen? Ik heb een shotgun. Dat is one shot, one kill. En deze guy die killt me gewoon makkelijk. Gadverdamme, man. Ik kan de hele tijd geen Call of Battlefield spelen met je 9-jarige wacht. Volgens close die disc gewoon. Hoerenzooi. Hier, homo. Zie je? Als controle ligt toch rennen naar links. Leuk, leuk. Jongen, hè? Hier, homootje. Hier, neuk je moeder. Kom dan. Dus ik kilt ook echt boos, jongen, hè? Wat een glitch. Wat een glitch. Zeg dat ik kan niet eens trouwens night om te aangooien. Gewoon dat het troll gewoon broken is. Fucking gay, jongen. Gadverdamme. Nou, ik denk ook weer make-up. Wat triest eigenlijk. 9 jaar hebben we dit spel aan het doen. Om wel helemaal nul van elkaar te krijgen. Ja, ik krijg AR ammo bij shotgun. De logic zo. Gooi eerst een bom aan. Ik heb de hele tijd gaan campen met deze koude shotgun in een hoekje.
UAV overhead. Enemy UAV overhead.
Hey, bismillah.
Hahaha, dat was een Turkje. Jongens, daar doen we het voor. Moskou. Dun, dun. Dat vind ik eigenlijk best wel prima. Ja, ja. Gaan we het toch wel vaker oppakken. Dat ding is toch wel een beetje sterk. Niet tegen Marco zeggen. Kom op. Nog een trappetje. Nog een trappetje. Nog een trap, nog een trap, nog een trappetje. 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 Hallo, motherfuckers. Dankeschön. Wat een charge, jongen. Wat een homo.
Friendly drop bag headed your way.
Headed my way is the way. De middeleeuwen, this is the way. Dat zegt ze altijd. Crazy son of a bitch, you did it.
Get to the new safe zone.
La 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 la. 3 augurken op fucking rij. Wie gaat als eerst? Nou, dat is nog zijn rij. Het zijn veel Duitsers en veel zwarte. Johan wil zijn loadout. Fuck jullie allemaal. Johan is echt... What the fuck.
Enemy UAV overhead. Bounty target has been marked. Kill them.
Kill them. Ik weet, hij zit daar ergens. En dat is gewoon puur kut.
We got gas moving in.
Ah!
Enemy UAV overhead.
Wat een homo, ik hitte hem en ik kreeg gewoon een throwing knife door zijn mel. Nou, ik weet niet, in de meeste werelden ben je dan dood.
On his way to Egypt, Napoleon deceived the Grand Master, who commanded the island's castle, saying he only wanted to replenish the provisions of his ships. But when they landed, Napoleon's troops attacked the knights. The survivors were expelled from the island. The Hospitaller Order also had a strong presence in Portugal. Some members were part of the nobility and even members of the Portuguese royal family. The Brazilian emperors Pedro I and Pedro II were part of the Order of the Knights Hospitaller. Finally, the order moved to Rome, where it is still active today. The Order of the Knights Hospitaller no longer does military training. Its work is focused on healthcare, maintaining good relations with the governments of several countries. The Hospitaller Order still maintains properties, such as a military fortress on the island of Malta, a castle on the island of Rhodes, as well as churches and some emergency rooms spread throughout Europe. The incredible story of the Knights Hospitaller has not yet come to an end. The members of the Order traded the fight on the battlefields for the noble purpose of saving lives.
One glitch. Knights Templars,
The
yeah.
Crusader era was one of the most troubled periods in history. Several European kingdoms came together to defend the Christian faith and to reconquer Jerusalem, which was under the rule of a Muslim caliphate. Many men, coming from various social classes, left their homes and families in order to respond to the request of the Catholic churches. They went on pilgrimage to the Holy Land. These men dreamed
Kick this fucker to the Holy Land and start your own crusade.
preaching in masses. Some were looking for updates, titles. Some were all descendants of noble lineages. These belonged to the most devastating force on the battlefields, the cavalry. To protect their social status and their own interests, several cavalry orders were created.
Soldier
Cavalry
incoming.
orders were composed of members who shared the same
Training
interests
is over.
and
Time to
ideals.
see what you have learned.
Those orders had specific functions on the battlefields. The road from the European road to Jerusalem was full of dangers. Violent groups of looters infested these regions. Many pilgrims ended up dying before seeing the Holy Land. To try to solve this problem, King Baldwin II of Jerusalem encouraged the creation of a new cavalry order. In
Battle
1118, the Order
Avoid
of
the
the
gas.
Poor
Get
Fellow
to the safe
Soldiers
zone.
of Christ and of the Temple of Solomon was founded, which became better known as the
Nice.
Order of the Knights Templar. The Order of the Knights Templar was founded by Hughes de Payens, a Frenchman. Together with only 8 knights, he created one of the most famous military institutions in history. The initial objective of the Order of the Knights Templar was to protect the Christian pilgrims who were on their way to the Holy Land in search of religious comfort, or to enlist in the army.
Ja, we kennen hem.
Enemy soldier incoming. Targets are up.
Hoe de fuck was hij daar al? What the fuck? Ik heb de fuck 3 man. Eentje was gewoon naar beneden gegaan, maar dat wist ik niet. Gewoon doodgeslagen. Shamig man.
Pay attention. You'll be out there soon. You can toss your enemy with words or rocks. It makes the wind go by faster.
Ah la 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 la, ik heb jou doodgeslagen.
The fight begins now. You're up next. Get ready.
Hoer. Oké, hij wint.
Win here and you return to the
Oké,
front line.
I
You
get
lose,
it.
your fight
I
is
get
over.
it. Oké, ik verlies, dat is echt zoiets typisch. Dat.
It's time. Break some. Sending you back to base.
Hoer.
You fought hard out there.
Ja, fysiek koude. Hoertjes. Negerinnen flikkers. Kut Turken.